The air trembled with heat before the first roar even reached the village. Smoke curled in thick black tendrils, carrying the scent of burning wood and fear. Villagers scattered, their screams tangled with the roar of something enormous above. Thorin, the elderly baker, froze at the doorway of his small shop. His hands shook around a folded napkin, the one he had been scribbling on all morning. It was only a piece of cloth, yet in it lay a thought he hoped could reach something greater than any weapon could. The ground quaked as the Dragon King landed at the edge of the village. Its scales shimmered like molten metal, and its eyes glowed like twin suns. Buildings groaned under the force of its wings, shingles flying like paper in a storm. Thorin's heart pounded, but he stepped forward. Each step was a decision: flee and live or stand and risk everything. He chose the latter. "Get inside," a young villager yelled, grabbing a child by the arm. The crowd surged like a river in panic. Smoke stung Thorin's eyes, but he kept walking, clutching the napkin tight. "Please," he whispered. "See this, just see it." The Dragon King lowered its massive head, tilting it slightly as if sensing something. Thorin couldn't tell if it was curiosity or death approaching. Its tongue flicked out, tasting the air, and the pulse in its chest emitted a low hum that vibrated the ground beneath him. For a moment, Thorin felt his bones shake, not from fear but from awe. He had never seen anything like this. Nothing in history books, nothing in his village stories, could prepare him for the intelligence behind those glowing eyes. A woman screamed as her house collapsed. Thorin looked at her, then back at the Dragon King. He took a deep breath. "I'm not here to fight," he shouted, his voice small but steady against the roar of the beast. "I only want you to see this." He lifted the napkin, holding it toward the sky. The Dragon King paused. Its roar faltered, and for a heartbeat the world seemed to hold its breath. Villagers stopped running, watching in disbelief. Thorin's hands trembled as he tossed the napkin upward. It floated, twisting in the wind, before landing near the Dragon King's claw. It sniffed, then picked it up with surprising delicacy. The creature's massive eyes scanned the napkin, and Thorin felt a thrill of hope. A small, impossible hope. Maybe it understands words, he thought, gripping the counter of his bakery to keep from falling. Then the ground shook harder. Debris rained from partially collapsed buildings. A fireball leapt from a broken wall and skittered toward the bakery. Without thinking, Thorin darted forward and shoved a pan of dough over the flames, smothering it. A tiny victory, but it made his chest ache with pride. He had saved something. He had done something even as the world burned around him. The Dragon King hissed, a sound like wind over iron, and stepped closer. Thorin could feel the heat radiating off its scales. He froze. One wrong move, one flick of a claw, and he would be gone. Yet it did not strike. Instead, it crouched slightly, wings folding inward as though trying to make itself smaller to match his courage. The gesture was surreal. "Old man," a voice shouted from the fleeing crowd. Thorin turned to see a boy pointing. "He's crazy. He's going to get eaten." Thorin didn't answer. He didn't need to. He could feel the creature's gaze on him, not with hunger but with curiosity. There was intelligence there beyond instinct. A question hung in the air. What was a human doing here, standing so boldly in front of a being that could crush an entire village? Suddenly, the Dragon King's tail swept across the street. Thorin ducked just in time, but the force sent a cart of apples skittering across his feet. One rolled under his boot. He laughed, nervous, half in disbelief. The creature growled low, almost like a warning, yet there was no attack. It was a test, Thorin realized. A test of bravery, maybe even of wit. Thorin took a careful step closer. "I only want peace," he said again, louder this time. "And understanding." He reached into his apron and pulled out a small loaf of bread, the smell rich and warm, carrying a trace of honey and spice. He held it toward the Dragon King. For a moment it did nothing. Then it sniffed, its eyes narrowing, and tilted its massive head. Something shifted. The tension in the air changed. Villagers held their breath. The fire in the distance crackled, but Thorin felt a strange calm settle in his chest. One act, one simple gesture could alter everything. Then, with a sound like metal on stone, a sharp flash tore across the sky. A second, even larger dragon appeared on the horizon, silhouetted by the setting sun. It wasn't just the Dragon King anymore. Thorin's heart leapt, but not with fear. With a steadying breath, he gripped the napkin tighter. Whatever came next, he had already made his stand. The Dragon King's eyes flicked toward the new arrival, and a low rumble began to build from its chest. Thorin swallowed hard. The world had just grown far bigger and far more dangerous, and he was standing right in the middle of it. And then it spoke, not with fire, not with claws, but with a sound that echoed in his mind, a pulse of thought that sent shivers down his spine. Who are you, and why do you dare? Thorin's heart pounded as the second dragon descended from the horizon, its wings slicing the air with deadly precision. The Dragon King beside him tensed, muscles rippling under molten scales. Thorin could feel the pulse of its power, a vibration in the ground that made every step he took feel like walking on a drum of thunder. The villagers shrank back, hiding behind wrecked carts and broken walls, eyes wide, breaths shallow. The second dragon landed with a roar that shook roofs off their foundations. Its scales were darker, jagged like obsidian, and its eyes burned with an intelligence colder than fire. Thorin's stomach twisted. He could tell immediately, this was no mindless predator. It was a scout, a hunter sent to test the Dragon King's loyalty. And Thorin's presence was complicating everything. He glanced at the napkin in his hand, crumpled but intact. The words he had written, a few simple lines of peace, hope, and humility, felt heavier now. If he failed here, the village wouldn't just burn. Everything he had known might vanish under alien wings. Step back, old man, a voice yelled. Thorin turned to see a young girl trembling behind a toppled fence. He's going to kill you. Thorin shook his head. No, he said, voice steady even as fear knotted his chest. I'm not leaving. He moved a little closer to the Dragon King, holding out the napkin like a shield. Not against claws or fire, but against misunderstanding. The Dragon King lowered its head, brushing Thorin's hand with a scale that radiated heat but no malice. Thorin felt a spark of trust, fleeting yet powerful. The creature's chest throbbed with a low, resonant hum, almost like a heartbeat. It wasn't just curiosity anymore, it was considering him an ally. The second dragon hissed, wings flexing, claws digging into the cobblestones. Its roar was a question and a threat at the same time. Thorin's mind raced. If he stayed frozen, the dragons would fight and the village would be crushed. If he acted, he had to be precise, clever. One wrong move and everything would be lost. He scanned the street. Broken carts, fallen boards, scattered loaves of bread. Then an idea sparked. He grabbed a bundle of flour sacks, soaked them in water from a nearby fountain, and tossed them at the second dragon. Clouds of wet dust erupted around it, momentarily blinding it. The dragon recoiled, wings flapping, and Thorin seized the moment. Listen, he shouted, his voice carrying over the chaos. We do not want to fight. We only want peace. The Dragon King growled low, stepping between Thorin and the dark-scaled intruder. Thorin could feel the creature's muscles coil like steel springs. The pulse in its chest quickened and he realized, this was a test of courage but also a test of heart. The Dragon King was gauging not just him, but the intent behind every human in this street. The second dragon lunged, claws slashing, but the Dragon King blocked with a sweep of its massive tail. Thorin ducked behind a cart, chest tight with fear, and whispered, I need to show it I can think, that humans can reason. He grabbed a loaf of bread, warm and fragrant, and flung it toward the second dragon. The scent hit first, confusing it, making it hesitate. Thorin didn't wait for instinct. He stepped forward, holding the napkin high. See this? Words can matter. His voice cracked, but he did not falter. The second dragon paused, tilting its head, its eyes narrowing. The Dragon King nudged the napkin with a claw toward the intruder. Thorin's heart skipped. Could it share understanding? Could one human, armed only with courage and simple gestures, influence two dragons at once? Then came the sound of movement, wings flapping faster, a subtle hum in the air. Alien scouts, small but deadly, began to encircle the village from above. Thorin's stomach sank. Even if he could manage the dragons, these enforcers would not wait. One misstep, and he, the Dragon King, and the entire village would be destroyed in seconds. Thorin's hands shook, but he forced himself to think. The bread, the napkin, the flour, small human tools against immense power. Could he combine them? Could he act faster than fear? He grabbed a second loaf, this one studded with herbs, and tossed it like a net over the approaching scouts. They screeched in confusion, crashing into each other and rolling into puddles of dust. A tiny victory, but it bought him precious seconds. The second dragon, finally drawn closer by curiosity rather than rage, lowered its head. Thorin's pulse hammered. The Dragon King nudged him gently, almost as if asking, now, say something they cannot ignore. He lifted the napkin once more. Words simple, honest, written from the heart. Peace is stronger than fire. Understanding is stronger than claws. He thrust it forward. The second dragon's eyes flickered. It paused. The villagers watched, holding their breath as the impossible happened. The creature slowly lowered its wings, tilting its massive head toward Thorin. A hush fell. The air trembled, not with fire but with disbelief. Thorin's chest ached with relief, but he knew this moment was fragile. The scouts above screeched, regrouping. The intruder dragon shifted its stance, ready to challenge the Dragon King again. Every second was a test. Every gesture mattered. Thorin's knees trembled, but he straightened, gripping the napkin tighter. One act, one word, one loaf of bread, it had calmed a creature that could crush him in a heartbeat. Yet he understood, as the second dragon flexed its claws again, that this was only the beginning. A shadow fell over the village, larger and darker than any dragon Thorin had seen. Something massive moved above the rooftops, faster than wings could beat. He squinted, chest tight, breath shallow. Whatever it was coming toward them, and it was not here to observe. Thorin swallowed hard and held the napkin forward, whispering, "We are ready, but are you?" The shadow roared. The shadow passed over the village in a heartbeat, blotting out the sun. Thorin squinted, heart hammering. The air quivered with energy, a low vibration that made the hairs on his arms stand on end. It wasn't just a dragon this time. It was something else, massive, alive, and alien in a way that made his stomach twist. The Dragon King beside him growled, low and wary, wings flexing as though ready to fight, yet cautious. From the shadow emerged a creature unlike anything Thorin had ever imagined. Its body shimmered with strange, translucent armor that rippled like liquid metal. It had no eyes, or at least none Thorin could see, but its head turned as if sensing everything. It hovered, silent and immense, above the broken streets. The alien scouts scattered instantly, as if obeying an unseen command. Even the second dragon froze, wings half lifted, unsure. Thorin swallowed hard. His hands shook, but he gripped the napkin tightly. He had nothing to fight this with, no weapons, no machines, nothing but his courage, his words, and his instinct. The creature descended slowly, each movement deliberate, almost curious. A strange hum resonated through the air, vibrating through stone, wood, and bone. Villagers clutched each other, frozen with fear. Thorin felt the heat in his chest rise, adrenaline mixing with dread. He knew he had to act. Hesitation here would mean death. Thorin stepped forward, toward the Dragon King, toward the alien, toward the impossible. I mean no harm, he shouted, voice cracking. We only want. The creature interrupted, not with roar or claw, but with a pulse of sound that slammed into his mind. Images flashed. Cities destroyed, dragons in chains, humans fighting hopelessly against alien fleets. Thorin staggered, but he forced himself to focus. There was something behind this. A pattern. A reason. A question. The alien was testing him, not just the dragons but him. He glanced at the Dragon King. The beast's eyes locked on the creature, then flicked to Thorin. For the first time Thorin realized, it trusted him. The Dragon King would not attack, not while he stood there. He had an ally, massive and terrifying, but an ally nonetheless. Thorin's mind raced. Bread, napkin, flour sacks. All of it had worked on smaller scales, but now the stakes were beyond imagination. He needed a new idea, something the creature could understand. Something human. He reached into his apron and pulled out another napkin, trembling hands scribbling words almost automatically. Simple words, honest words. We do not seek to conquer. We seek to understand. Will you see us? He held the napkin high and stepped closer. The Dragon King nudged him, encouraging him forward, chest thundering with a warning growl, but steady, controlled. The second dragon mirrored the gesture, lowering its head slightly. The alien hovered, silent, pulsing faintly. Thorin's pulse raced. He could feel the rhythm of the creature, a heartbeat of thought that was alien yet real. Then, unexpectedly, the creature shifted. It sent a wave of energy across the ground, flattening carts, splintering wood, forcing Thorin to drop to one knee. Dust and sparks filled the air, stinging his eyes. He coughed, vision blurred, but he forced himself to stand again. One wrong move and it would strike. One hesitation and the village would be gone. Thorin realized the truth. The creature responded not to force, not to fear, but to intent. Every action, every choice, every gesture mattered. Courage was not enough. Compassion, cleverness, and honesty were required too. He took a deep breath and stepped closer, holding out both napkin and loaf of bread, the smell strong, warm, unmistakably human. The alien paused, rippling armor shimmering like liquid. A pulse of light shot from it toward the Dragon King, who braced but did not strike. The pulse bounced harmlessly toward Thorin, and then, astonishingly, the creature lowered itself, angling its massive head toward the napkin. Thorin felt a surge of hope. It was reading, in its own alien way, what he meant. It was trying to understand. Suddenly the second dragon moved forward. Its claw reached for the napkin, but the Dragon King intercepted, protecting Thorin. The two dragons faced off, wings spread wide and Thorin's heart hammered. He realized, if he could unify them even briefly, the alien might see the power of unity, of intent, not just destruction. He shouted, "Together. We mean no harm. Help me show this." The words seemed almost ridiculous in the chaos, but he projected them with every ounce of his voice. The Dragon King growled, the second dragon hesitated, and the alien's pulse slowed, almost like it was listening. Then came the twist. An alien scout, previously hidden, darted from the shadows, ready to strike Thorin. Without thinking, he threw the loaf of bread not at the scout but in a wide arc, smothering it in dust and scent. The scout screeched, diverted, and collided with another scout. A tiny human-sized victory, but it bought Thorin a precious moment. The alien hovered lower, wings, or what could pass for wings, folding back. Thorin's mind raced. He had reached a turning point. He was no longer just a baker facing dragons. He was the one creating understanding, bridging worlds with gestures, words, and courage. He had the attention of a creature that could end life in a heartbeat, and it was listening. The villagers peeked from behind rubble, eyes wide, mouths open. Some whispered, "He's mad." Others, "He's brave." Thorin ignored them. Every nerve in his body burned, but he focused only on the creature, the dragons, and the napkin in his hand. Then, without warning, the alien emitted a low hum, darker and more intense than anything before. Thorin stumbled back, shielding his eyes. When he looked again, the Dragon King and the second dragon both lowered themselves toward him, wings folding, not in attack but in caution, a silent pact forming. Thorin felt awe, terror, and hope collide in his chest. And in that instant he realized, the alien was not just observing. It had made a choice, a subtle but undeniable decision. But what that choice meant he did not yet know. A ripple of air swept through the village, carrying a strange, metallic hiss. Thorin turned. In the distance, beyond the mountains that framed the village, a fleet of enormous ships shimmered against the horizon. They were unlike anything he had seen, black, sleek, and moving with precision that was unnatural. He gripped the napkin tighter. The test was not over. The battle for understanding had only just begun. And then the Dragon King's voice echoed in his mind again, low and thunderous. "Prepare yourself, human, they are coming." The village trembled under the shadow of the approaching fleet. Thorin's hands were raw from gripping the napkin so tightly. Smoke and dust swirled around broken streets, masking the scent of burning wood and fear. The Dragon King loomed beside him, massive and silent, wings coiled like steel springs. The second dragon crouched across the street, eyes flicking nervously toward the horizon. Thorin realized the impossible truth. If he failed now, not just the village but all life here could vanish in moments. He swallowed hard, forcing his fear into focus. There was no time to panic. Every second mattered. The alien fleet was closing fast, massive ships glinting in the dying sunlight, their engines humming like a swarm of locusts. Thorin's mind raced. How could a single human, frail and unarmed, hope to survive this? And yet, he wasn't unarmed. He had courage, cleverness, and the creatures beside him. That had to be enough. A sudden, deafening roar split the air. The second dragon lunged forward, claws slashing, but the Dragon King intercepted with a sweep of its tail. The force sent Thorin sprawling into the rubble. Pain shot through his back, but he ignored it, crawling forward and holding the napkin high. "Now or never," he shouted. The Dragon King growled, wings flaring, its body a furnace of molten strength. Thorin leapt to his feet, bread in hand. He scattered it toward the dragons and the fleet alike, a strange human trick. The scent, warm and rich, carried through the smoke. To him it seemed insignificant, but to the Dragon King and the second dragon, it was a signal. Intent, not aggression. The second dragon hesitated mid-lunge, confused. Thorin's pulse raced. One small human gesture and it had worked. Above, the fleet's lead ship tilted, scanning the chaos. Alien energy beams began to fire at the village. Thorin's eyes narrowed. He had seconds to act, seconds to turn despair into hope. He sprinted toward the Dragon King, scrambling up its scaled flank with hands like hooks, feet finding impossible grips on molten ridges. The villagers screamed below, some hiding, some frozen, watching an old baker climb the back of a living mountain. "Hold on," Thorin shouted, landing atop the Dragon King's massive shoulder. Heat rolled off the creature in waves, but it didn't shake him off. Instead, it leaned down, eyes narrowing toward the fleet, nostrils flaring. Thorin pulled the napkin from his pocket and spread it wide, the simple words he had written catching the last rays of sunlight. Peace is stronger than fire. Understanding is stronger than claws. The Dragon King exhaled, and from its throat came a pulse of energy, not aimed at Thorin but at the alien fleet. It struck the nearest ship, sending it spinning in the sky, engines exploding in a brilliant shower of sparks. Thorin's stomach lurched as debris rained down, but the Dragon King held steady. The second dragon mirrored the attack, joining with precise synchronization. The fleet wavered, confused by the unexpected display. Thorin felt a surge of triumph, but no time to celebrate. More ships were coming, larger and faster, shadows eclipsing the sun. He realized the danger was far from over. Using the Dragon King as a platform, he leaned over its neck, flourishing the napkin like a flag. His voice carried in a shout that seemed to slice through the chaos. We do not fight for conquest. We fight for life. One ship hesitated, engines flickering. Another faltered. Thorin could sense it. The power of intent, of courage, of human stubbornness, was influencing beings far larger, far stronger than himself. The Dragon King pulsed again, energy rolling through its massive chest. Thorin gritted his teeth, holding on, feeling the rhythm of its heartbeat. He was no longer just a human. He was a signal, a conduit, a bridge between species. Then came the pattern interrupt. The fleet's commander, a massive alien warship unlike any other, descended rapidly, releasing a pulse of energy that rocked the Dragon King backward. Thorin tumbled, clutching scales, heart in his throat. Below, the village shuddered. Smoke and sparks filled the air. He could hear screams, buildings cracking. Every instinct told him to leap, to run, to hide, but he stayed. He could not abandon this chance. Thorin reached into his pocket, grabbing another napkin, scribbling faster than thought, words raw, urgent. Look at what we can do together. Stop this before it's too late. He thrust it into the air, letting it flutter toward the alien warship. The words were nothing to most, meaningless symbols, but to creatures capable of sensing intent, they carried truth. The Dragon King, reading the signal, rose higher, wings stretching like molten steel. The second dragon followed. Energy pulses ripped through the sky, striking the fleet with precision. One by one, ships faltered, their formation breaking. The alien commander hissed, the hum of its engines dying to a low pulse, and then silence. Thorin landed on the Dragon King's shoulder, panting, dust and sweat stinging his eyes. He looked down at the village, still standing, still alive. The small payoffs of bread, napkin and courage had grown into a massive defense, a testament to human ingenuity and determination. The Dragon King lowered its massive head to Thorin's level. Heat rolled off its scales, but its eyes were calm, almost proud. Thorin reached up, resting his hand on the warm metal-like surface. He had faced impossible odds, guided by nothing but courage and cleverness, and had survived. Then a low hum rippled across the horizon, louder than anything before. Thorin's stomach dropped. He turned, seeing a glimmer in the clouds, hundreds of alien ships moving fast, larger, darker, unstoppable. The battle had ended, yes, but a greater war was coming. The Dragon King growled, wings spreading, eyes locking with Thorin's. In his mind, its voice thundered. This was only the beginning. Prepare yourself, human. Thorin swallowed hard, gripping his napkin, chest pounding. Fear and determination collided. He knew one thing for certain. The impossible had only grown, and the human spirit would be tested like never before. The smoke settled slowly over the village. Thorin's chest heaved, lungs burning with each shallow breath. The fires were mostly out, the villagers unharmed, though shaken. Staggering down from the Dragon King's shoulder, he looked around at the streets he had known his entire life, now scarred and broken, yet still standing. The small, crumpled napkin in his hand felt heavier than any sword. Villagers emerged from hiding, eyes wide, whispering in disbelief. He did it, he really did it, a young woman said, clutching a frightened child. A man shook his head, tears streaking his soot-covered face. The old baker, he saved us all. Thorin's hands trembled. He hadn't fought with weapons. He had fought with courage, wit, and the smallest human gestures, and somehow, it had been enough. The Dragon King lowered its massive head to Thorin's level, nostrils flaring, eyes glowing softly. Thorin hesitated, then placed his hand against its molten-scaled snout. Heat radiated through him, but it was not threatening. The creature exhaled slowly, almost a sigh. Its hum reverberated through the village, and for the first time, Thorin felt something beyond fear, connection. The second dragon crouched nearby, wings folding, watching carefully. Thorin realized that the bond he had formed with the Dragon King extended to the other dragon as well. Simple acts, bread, napkin, calm courage, had shown these impossible beings that humans could think, could reason, could care. The impossible had been bridged by something smaller than weapons or fleets, human heart. Thorin stepped forward, voice steady despite exhaustion. You don't need to destroy us. We are not your enemies. He unfolded the napkin one last time, showing the simple words he had scribbled. Peace is stronger than fire. Understanding is stronger than claws. The Dragon King nudged the napkin gently, then turned its gaze skyward. Thorin followed its eyes and froze. On the horizon, a dark shimmer of alien ships lingered, still moving, still massive, still faster than anything he could imagine. The fleet that had threatened the village moments ago had regrouped, larger and stranger than before. Thorin's stomach tightened. The fight was not over. What he had done here had won a moment, a fragile victory, but it was clear the universe had more tests waiting. Yet even as fear prickled at his mind, Thorin felt something stronger, hope. He had faced unimaginable odds with nothing but courage, wit, and heart. And he had succeeded. He could face more. He had survived the impossible, and that survival, human survival, was proof of something greater. The villagers, emboldened by what they had seen, began to step forward. They offered water, blankets, and first aid to one another. Small human acts but meaningful. Thorin looked at them, pride swelling despite the exhaustion, and realized that courage could inspire. Humans could shine, even in the shadow of creatures that could crush entire cities with a claw. The Dragon King lowered itself fully to the ground, wings folding as if acknowledging Thorin's leadership. The second dragon mirrored the gesture, smaller but equally deliberate. Thorin knelt beside the massive creatures, feeling the rhythm of their pulse, their intelligence, their awareness. He realized that this village, his people, and even the dragons had been connected by a single human choice, the courage to act when all hope seemed lost. Suddenly, a soft shimmer passed through the air near the edges of the village. Thorin's eyes widened. A small scout ship, tiny compared to the fleet, hovered briefly before retreating. The Dragon King growled low, a warning to unseen eyes, and Thorin realized something vital. His actions had been noticed beyond this moment. His courage had echoed further than he imagined. The villagers gathered around him. Some knelt, some stared in awe, others whispered questions. How did you do it? A boy asked. Thorin smiled faintly, exhausted but resolute. I didn't do it alone, he said. We all did it. Humans, dragons, even the enemy noticed. Courage isn't just a thing you feel. It's a thing you show. A hush fell over the village as the Dragon King rose, massive wings stretching high. Thorin climbed onto its shoulder again, gripping his napkin like a banner. The second dragon joined in, forming a protective arc around him. Together they were a symbol not of destruction, but of what humans could inspire: respect, understanding, and courage that even the greatest power could not ignore. Then the horizon shimmered again, faint at first, but unmistakable. A massive formation of alien ships, far larger than any Thorin had seen, moved with precision toward the planet. Their purpose was unclear. Thorin's pulse quickened. He was exhausted, bruised, yet a spark of determination lit within him. This was not the end. The universe was larger than this village, larger than this Dragon King, larger than any single act. But humans, small, fragile, ordinary humans, could change the course of events. Thorin clutched the napkin tightly, wind whipping through his hair. He whispered to the Dragon King, voice barely audible over the hum of wings, "We'll face them, together." The Dragon King exhaled a low, steady hum in response, a silent promise of loyalty. Thorin felt the enormity of what he had achieved and knew that courage, empathy, and intelligence were more powerful than any weapon. As the villagers watched in awe, the Dragon King rose into the sky, carrying Thorin high above the broken streets. The second dragon followed. Below, the village remained alive, scarred but standing. Thorin looked ahead toward the approaching fleet, knowing this victory was only the beginning. The human spirit had won today, but tomorrow a greater challenge awaited. And in that moment, Thorin understood the truth. Courage could reach across worlds. Words could reach across species. And one human brave enough to act could alter the fate of many. He held the napkin high, letting the wind catch it, and whispered to the coming darkness, "We are ready. And we will not be broken." The horizon pulsed again with the glint of alien ships. The next battle was coming.